Hey, what's going on, guys? I got a special guest here today. We have Kris Krohn. If you haven't heard of him, you're gonna want to because he's transacted over 6,500 houses, real estate deals. Does over 10 million social views a week, and he's a bodybuilder and does much, much more. He's excelling at a very high level. Kris, how are you doing today?
Dude, what's up? Jordan, great to be here and so excited to connect.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the Clockedin podcast. This room you're in is fascinating. It's incredible.
Yeah, this is this is one of my smaller studios and it's actually in my home. So when I'm not actually in my actual studio, it works.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I just want to compliment that. And Kris, so for you, where did this journey for you start on financial literacy and then just kind of building in these different imperial pillars and areas of life?
You know, when I was younger, I was really trying to ask myself, okay, how do you live life with the least regrets? How do you get where you want to go? And I started realizing something. It's like, okay, I've met, I come from two parents that were relatively obese growing up. So I'm like, okay, if I can't get my health under control, then that's going to rob a lot of my life. That's not going to be good. I'm going to have to figure out the health game. But then I also realized my parents fought a lot. So I'm like, okay, so I also want to figure out the love game, the relationship game. I'm going to want to figure out with whoever I marry how we can literally have the most beautiful and blissful relationship. And then I was like, yeah, but my parents also fought about money. So I'm like, okay, so I got to figure out the money game because money's the common denominator that touches all things. And then on top of that, I believe in God, and it's like I know that my soul needs to be nurtured. And so I basically, when I was younger, I just made up these four goals. I said, okay, my version of having it all in life means that I've got my health, I've got my wealth, I got love figured out, I got God figured out. And that's really kind of been the underpinnings of everything that I've ever done is if those four basics are handled and I'm growing in those and I feel satisfied and good about them, then everything else is going to be gravy on top.
I love that. I love that. At Edwards Consulting, we have five pillars, and it's mental health, physical health, community service, philanthropy, spirituality, and relationships. So I align
Yeah, yeah.
exactly with what you're talking about because if you're not looking at these and reflecting on them, you're not growing. So to you, what's growing?
Yeah. So first of all, I love to learn by proxy. I love peeking in other people's lives. And when I was young in my early 20s, I had a chance to partner up in real estate investing with some of these older folks that were in their 50s. They had been to college. They were really good Dave Ramseyites, great savers with their money, good 401kers, good ROIers, good house pair offerers. And it was fascinating for me to talk with them. And I'll never forget talking with this one gentleman. He was a high powered executive at this company, making, I think, like $500,000 a year. And he said, Kris, I've done great in my career and I've made really great money, but I've let a lot of my health go. And more importantly, now that I have the level of success where I have time for my family, my daughters are married off. Like I can't go back and get that time with them. And as a young man in my early 20s, I just remember writing these lessons down and learning and basically saying, okay, Kris, you've got to figure out how to get done early in life. And so I made this goal. I want to be financially free in my 20s. And by the time I was 26 years old, I was just graduating college. I had a small portfolio of 25 homes. Residually, they were paying me about 12,000 a month, right? So like a very small amount of money, but enough money that I didn't have to have a job. In fact, I quit a six-figure job because my real estate took care of me. And then that year, my income tripled, and then it just kept doubling year over year. And so I really kind of subscribe to this idea that if something's important, do it and do it now and get it done. And it was the same with my health. My health journey, I wasted a decade being that dude that went to the gym 6 days a week religiously
Yeah,
and still couldn't kind of fight the battle of the bulge successfully. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like I'm doing my cardio, I'm doing my exercise, but my body fluctuates 30 pounds up and down and it doesn't really look like how I want. And at some point I was like,
yeah.
hey, dude, you have to go to the people that got it. So I remember hiring my very first coach that had my dream body. And within 6 months of working with him, I got the body and I figured it out. And it's been this game ever since. And so I love hacking. Like I love biohacking. I love financial hacking. Other people are out there that have already figured it out. Why reinvent the wheel? But worse, why be stuck? Most human beings are robots. We are the world is filled right now. We are in the zombie apocalypse. It's not a game fought with, with guns, and eating brains, but these zombies, are these unconscious, clueless human beings that will spend decade after decade in the same pattern, getting fatter, getting more lethargic, becoming less happy, and wasting their most valuable asset, time, so they can't build wealth. No compound interest, no investing. And I'm like, man, what is wrong with human beings? And I really say that from a place of love, because I love people so much, but I love them so much that I usually find myself getting in their face and saying, shake them awake and say, what are you doing with your life? Come on. Like you won the lucky sperm club, right? Like trillions tried to get in and you found the egg. You're here. Like, why aren't you taking advantage of life? I don't get it.
I just love it, because your energy, it's true. You're trying to wake people up and you're trying to make them aware of what is possible. Yeah. Because society, we are kind of placed in this bubble of go to college, get a job, be happy. And it's like, we realize that a majority of people aren't that happy. They're also, I was realizing recently, 57% of people can't afford $1,000 payment if that comes out. Like, that's horrible.
Yeah.
That's horrible. And like, this needs to be discussed.
Yeah, it's a lot of unconsciousness, and it's a lot of lack of self-education. And I think that I feel like just people are, for the most part, not everybody, but there's so many lemmings out there that are just saying, you're the leader, I'm the follower. Just, I'll do whatever you tell me. And I'm like, you got to wake up and become your own leader. Like, what do you want? Are you happy? Do you like your life? Are you in love with your life? Like, most people summon very minimal amounts of energy just to get by from one day to the next. And every day is more or less a rinse and repeat of the day before. And I'm like, man, if everything you've been up into this moment isn't giving you what you want now, like, you realize that you have to change everything, like not a little, not a lot, like you have to change a ton if you want to start producing a different result. Otherwise, you're trapped in Einstein's definition of insanity, right? Same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That's people endlessly fascinate me. I think probably more than anything, I fancy myself a psychologist. I love studying the psyche of people and just trying to wrap my head around like why people are built the way they're built, because I want to find that chink in the armor where I can get in there and be like, wake up, like that's it, like let's go.
Yeah, because it's so important. And I've seen so many people, and it's the earlier you want to catch it. Like, if today's the wake up call, fantastic. If it's tomorrow, great. But like, that's one of the reasons I do the podcast, because sometimes it's like, I don't know who to get around. And it's like, get around the people who are making the difference, who are making a change. And that's why I was excited to have you on, because you are doing a lot of different stuff. So dive in on your philanthropy, because I find that one very interesting, because a lot of people know about the real estate, and we'll get over the finances a little bit more, but the philanthropy is really interesting to me.
My wife and I, we always knew that for us, the purpose of building wealth was so that we could be really generous givers. And, if you understand how wealth builds, when you finally have built something, call it $100,000 that you want to give to charity, you have this choice. If you give them the $100,000, then you have to start all over from scratch, building up to your next nest egg that you're going to give. And what I've done is I've just kept compounding and rolling so much of my money forward, where it's just like, well, no, let's help that 100,000 become $1 million. Let's help that million become 10 million. Let's keep growing the money, because really my ultimate dream isn't to write one check, but to write a check that will write checks on its own for forever. And it's the game of perpetuity. There's only a couple of things that will outlast us. I think the books we write have the power to pass on legacy. And I think endowment funds, meaning I'm giving money to a thing that self-invests, that spins off interest, that always gets bigger, and that interest becomes the gift, not the principal. And so a couple of years ago, my wife and I, we got serious about our foundation. It's called the Krohn Breakthrough Foundation. And I developed a mental health hack for basically finding limiting beliefs and overcoming them. And that's what I do in a lot of my events is people come to me because they want to be wealthy, or they want to be fit, or they want to be happy. And the reality is they're looking for a strategy and a hack, and that's never going to be it. So I go deep in the brain and figure out why they're not, and then I help fix it. And so I built a foundation that just gives this technology and talk therapy away for free. But another part of our foundation is helping those who cannot help themselves. And so 18 months ago, we went to Ukraine for the first time. This spring, I'll be going for my fourth time. And on that first mission, we were bringing $1 million worth of supplies to babies, infants who were going to die unless they could be transported out of the country. And they didn't have ventilators. They didn't have the equipment to bring them out. And so these preemies born from stressed out moms in these war times,
Yeah.
we're just perishing left and right. So we got to do something about this. So in 5 weeks, I threw in a bunch. I asked a couple of my entrepreneur buddies to throw in as well. And we got on a jet. We went to Ukraine, and we did this peacekeeping mission and this life-saving mission. And there was a little girl in particular who was struggling for life. She was 2 months old. Her name was Sophie. And I was like, okay, I've got this ventilator out of $1 million supplies. I've got this serialized ventilator just for this little girl. And I remember when I handed it off to our, to our friends that had helped organize all this in country, that we kept doing the rest of our humanitarian work. We were pulling people out of danger zones, war zones, and all this. And on the way back,
Yeah.
I got the phone call, Jordan, and they said, hey, this sweet little girl made it to her surgery because of the ventilator that you brought, but also shared that she hadn't survived the surgery. And it was such a heartbreaking moment in my life that I just vowed that I wouldn't stop. And I feel like I have her in my heart, and we've just continued doing this work. And we are going into parts of the world where people have needs, desperate needs, and no one's there helping them. In Mexico, we have our safe house, an orphanage of kids that we collect out of sex trafficking. And these kids are not safe in their own families because it's their families that traffic them for money. And so it's like, these kids need to be saved. They need to be fed, nurtured, brought back to health. They need therapy. They need schooling. And then I got to find a different family to place them with. Right. That entire orphanage, when I came upon it, it had already shut down its other house because it just doesn't have funding, and no one is there. No one is helping. I'm like, wow, there are places in the world that have such huge needs, and people aren't coming. So we need to. And so that's a big part of what my wife and I have been doing is just we're trying to find the people that can't help themselves.
Yeah, two major takeaways. I love that it's you and your wife. It's a thing you guys connect on, because a lot of the time it can be just a one person. So it's you guys connecting on it. And then the second incredible thing is that you're going out there and doing it. You're seeing it real time. You're seeing the difference, because there's a lot of people that hesitate to donate because they're like, I don't know where it's going. I don't know what's happening. So when you were growing that real estate fund and those houses in that little 25 houses, was this ever part of the plan, or where did this all come in?
No, this actually was really the plan from the beginning. I don't think my heart was right. It was a plan that just kind of altruistically sounded good. There's an evolution that we humans go through. It was on my second trip to Ukraine that really changed me forever. I found myself in the back of a Jeep, basically racing through firefight to save these people in this neighborhood that weren't getting out otherwise, and houses were being blown up from indirect fire. And I was out there and I was grabbing their crap and throwing it in the back. And I literally threw them in the car and slammed the door, and we're peeling rubber getting out of there. And in that moment, I'd never felt more alive, but I also had lost all of my ego and self-importance. Like, those bullets, those bombs, they didn't care if I was wealthy. They didn't care if I was an influencer. They didn't care if I was successful or an author, or if I was leaving legacy, or like, I was just a meat sack. And it was a very, very humbling moment to just realize that I'm nothing, and yet I'm everybody. And I came back from that trip, and my heart grew a lot from that one. So honestly, Jordan, it's just been a becoming journey. And I think I'm no different than so many people out there that have desires. I think just often sometimes the difference is whether we take action or not. And for me, I can't stand the idea of living a very, very elementary, normal life. Like, normal and mediocrity terrify me. I'm terrified of living a normal life. We can probably dive into my messed up psyche some other time and figure out what's wrong with Kris Krohn. Like, why is he the way he is? Well, I'm sure there's a lot of garbage in there that contribute to why I feel this need to, to overcome my challenges and rise above and help people. But that's part of what's in there.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to say that it's inspiring. Like you pushing yourself because at 26, you could have been like, I'm done. I'm doing nothing. Me and my wife are just chilling. It's inspiring for you to keep going and growing in these different areas. And so what's really the game for you? What do you look forward to now?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to be really clear. When I retired at 26, I did retire. And for 6 months, I didn't have a vision. I didn't have a heading. And my wife and I had one kid. We had my little 1-year-old daughter, and I spent all day at home with her and my wife. And strangely, I felt on fire while I was building my wealth, and I felt it doused out when I stopped. And,
Wow.
and it was like there was this higher calling inside that said, bro, you're not done. You're far from it. You're just starting your journey. You're a creator. You have to get out there and create. So what drives me today? I think half the time I'm stuck in a game of excellence where it's just like more success, bigger success, more returns, more winnings. And then the other half of the time I'm like, who cares about growing? Like just slow down and just enjoy everything. Spend time with your kids. And so I kind of go back and forth between these two very polarizing versions of me, one that is insanely productive, and then the other one that is insanely lazy. And I pop back and forth. Lazy is probably not the right word, but it's this game of it's like when I'm playing, I'm going to play so hard. And when I'm working, I'm going to work so hard. And I think the game that I really enjoy the most is balance. And society says you can't have that, right? We're all so busy, we can't have that. I'm like, that's a lie. Balance is so achievable. You can have the body, you can have the marriage, you can have the finances, you can have it all. It takes strategy and it takes discipline and it takes development, but it's 100% out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what the audience is probably interested in is, as most are, as we said, 50%, 57% of people can't even get $1,000 payment. So like, what are these financial breakthroughs? What are these strategies that that like, what are these things? What are people missing?
Yeah. So first of all, for some reason, human beings do not make a study of how wealth is created. What they do is these lemmings go to college and get pieces of paper that says they're smart so that they can be employed by somebody. And
Yeah,
that's not bad, right? Like the purpose of a career is to pay bills and maybe get ahead a little bit, but you're never going to get rich. And you're delusional if all of your bandwidth goes towards that, thinking that it's going to produce a wealthy outcome, because it's just not. There's a second version of you that you have to develop, which is the investor. So you can have your career, but you have to learn how to make money perform. You have to learn about the game of money. And to be clear, a 401k is not an investment. That's a passive, lazy, guaranteed get nowhere choice. Same with putting money in an IRA. It's the exact same thing. And same as the S&P. These things that do a blended average of 6%, like all you have to do is pull out some 5th grade math and a calculator and say, hey, let's Google, will you tee me up a future value calculator? If I contribute this amount of money, $8,000 or $12,000 every year to savings and have it grow at 6% on my blended average, where will I be at retirement? And the number is going to be not millions of dollars, barely a few $100,000. And people don't do that
yeah,
math. And so what they do is they will work 30 years with their blinders on, and then one day say, I'm within 10 years of retirement. Let's see how I'm doing. And I'm like, you needed to do that check-in about 25 years ago, because you're so far off base and you've lost your asset of time. And that's your fault. Like that was on you, because your boss is not there to make you wealthy and nobody else's job is either. That was your job. And so it's like, okay, there's some things in life we have to master, and money is one of them. So I'll share with you the two things that I really believe in. And the first one is real estate, and the
yeah.
second is business. Real estate is all about growth, and business is all about cash flow. So real estate is something that I invest in because when I buy a home and get it to compound at 25%, a single home I buy this year in 20 years is worth $4.3 million. If I actually
Wow.
get my average returns of 34%, then a single home I buy this year in 20 years is worth $17.3 million. And you know what? Most people can probably retire on $17 million or $10 million. And so it's like, people are crazy that they're not doing what creates 90% of all millionaires in America. What is it? It's real estate. And they have reasons why. They're like, oh, I'm busy with my career, my family, and my kids. I don't have time to learn that. I'm like, you can't afford not to do a handful of things that will change everything. Because when I do real estate, it's passive. It doesn't take my time, and it just does its thing. And so, now imagine buying hundreds of homes every year with no money, no credit. You can imagine what, where my net worth stands in terms of that.
Yeah.
And the exciting thing, all I have to do is fast forward 10 or 20 years and be like, whoop, there's $1 billion. But to go faster and to create acceleration, you've got to start playing a business private equity game. Let me tell you what I don't mean by business. What I don't mean by business is becoming an entrepreneur that sells 60 to 80 hours a week of his life to his business. I don't mean that. That's called an operator. And that's worse slavery than being a W-2, because you have to wear more hats and you have to work harder and sometimes for less pay, because there's a learning curve to entrepreneurship that sucks. And so when I say business, what I actually mean is being an owner of business, and not just one. I mean, many. Like, for some reason, human beings are they're only open to the idea of a stream of income. And like, you crazy, Leave It to Beaver could had one stream of income and been okay. In the 80s, we needed 2 streams. Today, 62% of households are joint income earners, just so they can live paycheck to paycheck. The average person is only making $31,000 a year. The average retirement at 65 is $204,000 set aside. And it's like, you annuitize that and it's like $500 a month for the rest of your life. Like, it's nothing. And so, you just do the math and you look at all that and it's like, oh, it's like, if I own a business and it pays me 10 grand a month, and I own this franchise and it pays me 6,000 a month, and I buy this thing and it makes me 30,000 a month. If I have enough streams, then first of all, I can ride out weird economies. Thank you, Biden economics. But more importantly, collectively, I actually have all the money that I need to live the life that I want. Me and my family just got back from 2.5 weeks in Japan. Before that, I was with my friends, took my jet with all of my friends in it to Iceland. Before that, we were in the Galapagos Islands. Lots of world travel, all in the name of memory making, because wealth is literally for enriching other people's lives, and it's for enriching our own. It's for that memory making. It's for doing those things, my wife and I, with our kids, that we dreamed of when we were young and dumb and didn't have anything, so that we could give them a better life than we ourselves had. So real estate and business are the 2 things. The real estate done correctly will solve for the long game, and business will solve for the short game. You do a combination of both, oof, you're a freaking monster.
Absolutely. And if you guys wait to the end of the episode, Kris might have something for you guys. But in the meantime, Kris, I think you brought up a super interesting point, where most people only identify with one source of income. They also only identify with, I'm a firefighter, or I'm a speaker, or I'm a this. They don't realize we have these different identities. Yeah. And you do it so masterfully, where you're like, I'm an influencer, I'm real estate, I'm a speaker, I'm this, I'm that, I'm an investor. How do you see identities? Because that's something a lot of people struggle with.
All right. So I'm going to answer your first question, which is, tell me about your notion of growth. I have mastered 37 different things in my life, 37 different skills. You can do that by virtue of Tim Ferriss meets Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours. And between those 2, I basically tackle something that fascinates me to no end. And then I learn how to do it at such a proficient mastery level that I become one of the best in my space, right? The disproportionate rewards never go to the jack of all trades, the master of none. If you're in the top 90 percentile, you get nothing. If you're in the top 99 percentile, you get a little bit more. When you're in the top 0.111%, you get everything. It is disproportionately doled out to the people that develop mastery. So mastery is really my thing that I'm super, super passionate about. And some of the things I master are just for fun. Like, I'm a black belt in Taekwondo. But there are other things in life that I take way more serious. As a speaker, I own my Avona Event Center. I put on a half a dozen events every year. And when people go to my multi 3-4 day events, they have the craziest life-changing experience, because I've made my life the study of change. I've made my life the study of how do you get someone to abandon a multi-decade old belief system that induces fear and worry, non-action taking, failure, etc., not good enough, and overcomes it. Well, I'll never stop working on that mastery game. But in the meantime, I'm adopting new ones as well. So mastery is really what I value, which is learn something beyond being proficient, learn it to a level that you earn the disproportionate rewards from being in the 0.0001 club.
Wow. That's profound. I love that approach because most people are doing it at a very mild level, and
Well,
we
and
don't see the distinction.
yeah, and your career, by the way, is just mastering one thing. Those four basics I mentioned at the start of the call, mastering your faith, mastering your family, mastering your financing, mastering your fitness, those four core basic F's. If you don't master those, then you're going to wind up divorced, overweight, sick and dead earlier than you wanted to be, poor, or disconnected from self and God. And so it's like you can't afford not to develop mastery on those four things. But people typically put a minimum in and they're like, I'm good. I'm okay. And I'm like, really? Like, really, really, really? I don't believe you. Like your results, the fruits
Yeah.
of who you are, they're not showing right now. The reality is
Yeah.
whatever your results are in life right now they're perfect. They're a perfect expression of your own personal philosophy in life. And everyone has a philosophy. And if you don't have what you want, I got news for you. What you're getting that you hate so much is exactly what you want. You're getting some weird, kinky, psychological, getting off experience from being poor or from being fat and from not doing some of these things. I won't judge those things as necessarily bad, but most people would admit consciously those are not the results that they want to create. And so people got to wake up.
Yeah. And you got to work towards those goals and whatever they are. But I also find it interesting how there's multiple different aspects of our life, right?
Yeah.
Because we're not just a one-tiered human. Like if we get a promotion, that doesn't mean that we had a great year.
Yeah.
That like there's many other aspects. If that promotion led to a divorce, it's not a good thing. It wasn't a win.
Good point.
And I think we don't look at these as separate activities when in reality it's your whole life. It's a holistic view. And we look at it only one tiered, which is tough. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about what you're going on with what's going on with your bodybuilding. I find that very fascinating because that is one of the most difficult things to do, and you're rocking it.
Yeah, dude, it is a tough form of athleticism. I really love the challenge of it. I think I paid 36 grand to my coach so far this year, he creates pro athletes in this space, and
Yeah.
bodybuilding is very, very competitive. And there's a lot of mastery because to really lean in and do it the right way, you have to master your nutrition. You have to master your workouts. You have to master your psychology. And there's supplements and there's cardio. And so there's a lot to it. And it requires just honestly a ton of discipline, because dropping body fat to 3%, for example, is not something that you do in 3 days. It's something that happens over several months. And there's a strategy. Like right now, I'm at a part where my fourth competition will be next year. And for me to be competitive, being 6'4", I need to come on stage no less than 20 pounds heavier than the last time I was on stage. So I'm gaining 30 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Now. And gaining 30 pounds is 600 carbs a day, 300 grams of protein, 73 fats. And it's like at the end of every day, I feel like I got a food baby in my tummy and I feel so full just to get all that food in and to pack it all down. And I like one of the mistakes I've made for years is I would work out hard, I would supplement hard, I'd cardio hard, and then I didn't eat enough. And I was eating probably half of what I needed to. And it's like, wonder why I'm only gaining 5 or 6 pounds between, this and the last show. It's like, hey, dummy, you didn't nutrition the right way. You didn't eat the right way to do that. So it's challenging. It's hard, but I actually love I love the pain of it. Like truly, like I think it's so fun to do really, really, really hard stuff. Because if you really want to stand out from the crowd, let's not talk about bodybuilding. Let's talk about life. If you want to stand out, you just got to become the person that does what no one else is willing to do, right? You've got to niche down into something that no one else is willing to do. And by the way, there's a disproportionate amount of reward and success for everyone that stands out of the crowd. And to stand out, you've just got to be what no one else is willing to do. So me saying I'm going to retire at 26, dude, my buddies in college and my friends and my family, they all looked at me like I was crazy. I was at Gold's Gym with my brother spotting me on the bench press. I was probably 24 years old. And my nickname Red Dog, he's like, dude, Red Dog, that's crazy. You just bought your 5th house. Dude, that's so risky. I can't believe that you're doing that. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, man, you're in college and you don't have prospects for your future or your career laid out. Like, that's so weird to me that you think that's risky. I actually think the opposite. In fact, most people, I'll tell you, Jordan, think I'm a risky human being because they look at what I'm doing. They're like, dude, that dude's a risk taker. And I'm like, no. I've done the math. Doing nothing like you is the risk. doing nothing is what's going to guarantee no result. Like between, there's a certain amount of risk in life you have to take. So it's got to be calculated. And bodybuilding is one of mine. Like I want to live forever. In my head, I want to live forever. I tell everyone else I'm going to live to be 144 years old. That's not true. I'm an immortal. I'm going to live forever. But really, I want to get my body to a minimum of 144 years old. So I'm studying all the biohackers. I am taking all the sups. I've got a crazy anti-aging, regimen. And I do that because I love life and I want to live the most life I possibly can. And I'm just doing what no one else is willing to do, or I should say rather, very few people are. And of course, I'm going to get disproportionate rewards. Of course, I'm going to be in my 60s and 70s running marathons. Like, of course, I'm not a billionaire yet. That's kind of right around the corner. But of course, I'm going to be a multi-billionaire. And of course, I'm going to give it all to my foundation and create the coolest endowment fund. And of course, my wife and I are on like country 50, and we want to see 100 countries in the world. So it's like, of course, we're going to see. I live every day as if all the things that I want have already happened. I meditate on that for 30 to 40 minutes every day. I live as if everything I want has already happened. I'm so convinced in the deep psychology of my subconscious mind that every day I do the things that then make that fantasy a reality.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you ask people, what do you want in your life? They cannot definitively say it how you just said it because they haven't practiced. They haven't been there. And I wanted to say I did 75 hard with Andy Frisella. I did that back in 2020, and that's kind of what led me to the podcast. However, you finish 75 hard, you go, what do I do next? It's only 75 days. Life is long. So I love how you're having the body building competitions over and over and over, like, because it's constantly another step in mastery.
Well, I had this experience at last year's show. Actually, sorry, not last year, the one before. So this is maybe like 15 months ago. I had just finished my second show. It had been 10 years from my first to my second one. And I did it all alone.
Wow.
I didn't have my wife with me this time. I didn't have my friends with me. I didn't have anyone. I was doing it all on my own. I had my coach and everyone came to support me. And when I medaled on stage, I took second place. And when I came off stage and I went up to my hotel and everyone just wanted to sit there and watch me eat because I hadn't eaten. When you're done with the cut, I was having sushi, M&Ms. I was having cheesecake from the Cheesecake Factory. And, of course I can't eat very much and everything's going to make me sick. So I'm having these tiny little bites. I'm enjoying them. But right when I was about to take my first bite, I asked myself your question, Kris, what's next? And I said, that you're on a high. And if you don't make this decision while you're on a high, you're going to make it later when you're on a low. So do it now. And I asked my intuition, I said, what's my next move? And then I said, oh no, what I just got was commit every year for the next 5 years to do a show. And inside there was this rapid debate, and the debate said, don't open your mouth. You're a man of your word. If you say it, you're going to do it. Just don't say it. Please don't say it, because I had just finished doing something really, really hard. And before I gave it a chance, I knew me better. And I just blurted it out to all of my friends. And I said, I'm going to do a show every year for the next 5 years. And then I cried. And then I said, who's with me? And that next year I had 8 of my friends on stage with me like 3 months ago. And it was so amazing to share that experience with them, and even more for next year. So I am honoring that original commitment. And really it's just about having the next lined up that I know will make me a better human being.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you didn't have enough, like you weren't so self-centered to go, yes, I'm doing it for 5 years, but who's going to join me? Because when you really think about that, now your friends have a much deeper relationship with you. And they're like, yo, me and Kris are like, we thought we were family. Now we're like really family, like really, really close because of that difficult challenge that you guys went through together.
Yeah, my wife jumped in. She's doing the next one with me next year. She said she'll do one every year for the next 5 years. The funny thing is, the first show come and went. I should be saying I'm going to do one every year for the next 4 years. I'm not. I'm like, I'm going to do one every year for the next 5 years. Like, when something is good for you, then keep the discipline and keep it up. And I love never ending training. Like it's very, very fun for me. I've got a very bizarre schedule, different than most people's. But it really also allows me to live, the life that I love so much.
Yeah. So what is the schedule that you're diving into? Cause I've heard a little bit about it, but like, how do you manage it with the travel, with the activities? It's very difficult.
Dude, it's always the same word. It's discipline. And it's also, there's a lot of things I'm about to say that when you hear them, you're like, oh, I don't want to do that. I'm like, well, that's because you don't know how to do them and enjoy and love them. Right.
Yeah.
So I get up at 4 a.m. And the first thing I do is I pop my headphones on and I take 20 minutes to get to my private gym and to get my clothes on and get ready. And during that time, I'm listening to a book, double speed. So I'm pulling in about 40 minutes worth of information. And I'm just allowing my mind is fresh and my body is groggy. So my mind is waking up. 20 minutes later, I'm at the gym, I'm on the treadmill, and then I shift to meditation with my wife, and we'll do 30 to 40 minutes of meditation on the treadmill. And these are really deeply powerful spiritual, emotional experiences connecting to the divine within. And that is to wake up my soul and it's to wake up my heart. And it also connects me and my wife because we have profound experiences that we share that morning. Then
Absolutely.
I'm at the gym and we're there for 90 minutes doing our lift, or sometimes even just 60 minutes. And my coach is often there. My wife's coach is there, and we're in our routine and we're spotting each other, helping each other. I've got maybe 4, 5, 6 buddies that come to the gym with me. So we are just gymming together, totally focused, doing our thing, rocking it out to good tunes. And then my wife and I head home for an hour of us time where we're connecting. And that could be intimacy, that could be sexual, that could be more meditation. That's us having meaningful conversations and just feeding us. And then my mind is fed, my body is fed, my spirit is fed, my relationship is fed, my heart is fed. I'm now ready for the last hour of the day, which is to now get ready and be with my kids and share a profound lesson from my life with them, that they can take with them through life. And that's what we're having morning discussion over breakfast on. And so by 9 a.m., we've finished that hour together. And then, it's 9 a.m. Everyone is getting ready to start the day. I've ended my day. By 9 a.m., that first 5 hours, everything that was important to me, everything I needed to have done by 9 p.m. was done by 9 a.m. And so now everything else is just kind of gravy. And then, my daytime schedule is a little different. I work 3 days a week. So 25 hours a week of work is my happy. And Wednesday is my wife's day. So Monday is my social media day. So I'm just in studio on Monday creating content. Tuesday and Thursday, I work from home. Wednesday is my wife's day all day. We'll take the jet and go somewhere. We'll just create us time. We'll hit the spa. We'll do us, whatever it is. Friday is my kid's day. Saturday's my day. Sunday's God's day. And then we rinse and repeat. Monday through Friday, I usually get about 4 hours of sleep each night. And then over the weekend, I sleep sometimes 7, 8, 9, 10 hours and go into full reset. And then on Monday, we kick it off again. And then in between all that, we have the travel. And when we travel, we're still actually able to maintain so much of this schedule because it's so meaningful rather than like, oh no, we're traveling. It's so hard to like keep the routine. I'm like, no, it's not. When you're traveling, don't give yourself to the travel. Give 80% of yourself to the travel. Maintain the other 20 and keep your schedule the way it locks in for you. And that's one of the benefits of owning a private jet is I don't have to move my life with the airlines. They don't get to dictate commercially when I can come places and when I can go places. I save 40 days a year with my family by owning a private jet. And that jet also means that I get to honor all of my morning rules. And so I don't take flights early in the morning. I fly after 9 because my morning is sacred and nothing's going to get in its way.
Wow. Your intentionality is next level. I think it's so important because when you're showing up, and it proves you came on this podcast and you were lighting it up. I was getting pumped up. I'm like, wow, like this energy's high. This energy's exciting. And that's why it's so good. And obviously this passes through your companies, the people you interact with. But if you're thinking about it, Kris's morning was basically someone's whole week. Like people sit there, hung out with his friends, hung out with his wife. People think, oh no, I only get the intentionality. It can't be understated. I think it's so important.
And there's something that I'm actually doing there, Jordan. I'm actually cultivating energy. So when I nurture my soul and I nurture my heart and when I nurture my mind and when I nurture my relationships and I nurture my body, people can look at that on the outside and say, oh, that looks like balance. It looks like he's trying to check off all these boxes. There's really only one box. I am making sure by 9 a.m. I am a complete whole person. I'm the freaking Energizer Bunny. I've cultivated all the energy that I need. I've reinforced positivity and I'm ready for whatever the day is going to bring.
Yeah, I love that. And so something you brought up though, the 4 hours during the week, during each day, how do you think about that? Because sometimes they're like, you got to sleep 8 hours, you got to do that. How do you think about that?
Well, first of all, I think that we have a world full of people shitting on us. They're telling us, scientists and doctors are telling us what you should get. Everyone should listen to their own self minus their belief system. So when I
Yeah.
eradicated all negative beliefs on where energy comes from, which by the way, it hardly comes from sleep, it hardly comes from food, it comes from choice. My body has been acclimated to 4 hours of sleep, sometimes five during the weekdays. And I have high energy like this all day long. I don't do caffeine. I don't require stimulants. I'm high energy all the time. This works for my body. I get that there's other people out there that they need more sleep. My wife is one of those that historically would have told you she needs 8 to 10 hours of sleep every night to be able to function as a human being. Since she started bodybuilding, she's getting between 4 and 6 hours every night, religiously wakes up at 4 a.m. every morning, is so in love with the benefits of the routine that she can't put it down. And when you check in with her in the afternoon or evening, she's not tired. She's good to go. In other words, manifesting results is less about what scientists tell you you're supposed to and should, and it's more about what are you creating, right? I believe God put us on this planet to co-create. And in creation, it's up to us more than it is up to the doctors, the structures, the containers, where everyone else is trying to tell us how to be. And even as an influencer, I love giving advice. I love sharing with people what works for me. That doesn't mean it's what's going to work for you. And so what's more important is actually just to say, oh, Kris has given me options. And then I get to try them on and determine whether this honors my life's path. And if it does, great. Then maybe we get to play and do some things. There's a ton of people that watch me on social. They become my real estate partners. They'll put up capital from the 401ks and IRAs and home equity. I'll help them invest it in real estate. It's totally passive to them. They get to cash in on my $2 billion track record in the game, or they'll do private equity with me. We'll own a whole bunch of companies together. We'll go for high asymmetric risk where companies have not just a 10x or a 20x, but a 50x or a 100x growth trajectory. And we'll play that financial game. Some people will join my masterminds just because they want to sit and learn more of the teachings or the spirituality, or what some might call personal development or the life hacks. And so for me, I'm just playing life full out, and when people resonate with me, they come, they join me, and we play together, and that's beautiful.
Yeah, no, I love it because as soon as you started to explain it, it was funny. About a month ago, a little less than a month ago, I actually got engaged.
Hmm.
And that engagement morning, we went to bed at like 12 and I woke up at like 4 a.m. And I just started working. I was
Hmm.
working, went on a 6 mile run because I just couldn't, my mind was running and I'm like, I got to get going. So I just started doing stuff. And that day, there was no lapse in energy. It wasn't like, oh, I'm getting engaged right now. Now I'm tired. It's like, no, you got to show up. And
Yeah.
I completely get with what you're saying. When you have an exciting day, when you have a day that you're looking forward to, when you have things you want to accomplish, it's really important. And then when you have that group around you too, that
Yeah.
you're fostering, that you're talking about each morning, where it's like, I got my friends, I got my clients, I got the people I work with, I got my company. Yeah, it's incredible. And what do you think about when you think about culture when you're building a community? Because obviously you are leading from the front, and I think that's something that's super important.
So I believe that every company that's truly going to thrive needs not a weak culture, not a strong culture. They need an indomitable culture, one that is so well defined that when you are part of it, and when you're not part of it. And so we have a very specific culture. Ours is based largely around growth and personal development. So we don't hire zombies. We don't hire. There's a lot of competent people out there that are zombies. I'm not into competent zombies. What I'm into are people that not just possess the competence, but they balance it with the culture of personal growth. They've got goals, and I want to help them reach their goals too. It's not like come work here and support me. It's like I'm here to support you. Let's make something of our
Yeah.
lives together. Let's bond together and do something amazing. And so the culture is very, very important. It's very well defined, and it's one of my 8 tenets of what a company is required to have to grow. One of my companies called Fortify is a consult for equity company. We basically provide high-end business consulting. I come into companies and they basically say, hey, Kris, can you and your multi-million dollar payroll of ultra high level executives come help me grow my company? And that's one of my favorite things to do. I love breathing life into entrepreneurs, saying, hey, you're only doing 2 of the 8 things. Let's work together over the next couple of years and let's implement the other 6. Because if you do, your company's finally going to get going where you want to go. And so one of those 8 things is culture. And it's one of the hardest things for people to figure out. But when you have the blueprint, it's actually pretty easy to put in place.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the thing that you do different. A lot of people will go through and try to be an entrepreneur and try to do it on their own. You're out here putting that hand back down and pulling people up and helping them in their own way, which I think is incredible because there needs to be more of it. Like people have to first have the confidence and understanding and go, I need help, reach up. And if you're on that same level, it's work with him, partner with him. So, Kris, for you, is there any last things you want to leave with the audience? Where can they find you? This has been an incredible time and I really appreciate it.
No, Jordan, you're very, very welcome. So if anyone wants to connect more deeply, I've got a host of resources available, some free gifts at freewealthgift.com/clockedin. freewealthgift.com/clockedin. And that will also just share with you how to connect more deeply with me. My name is spelled a little bit funny, right? It's Kris with a K, K-R-I-S. It's Krohn, K-R-O-H-N. So just Google me. I'm on every platform, and you can definitely connect, watch more. And my only hope and prayer is that it helps you get way further down the road and get where it is that you're trying to go in life, so that at the end of the day, no one's going to care how rich you are, maybe even how healthy you are. What's really going to matter to us on our deathbed, I believe, is whether or not our life was fulfilling. And that's what I want for people above all. Go live an amazing, fulfilling life.
Thank you, Kris. I'm going to put all that in the show notes. This has been incredible.